So obviously, if you've been following the last story you were talking about, about people trying to get wedding photography for free, we kind of went over about how the profession isn't. People do this and they expect it, and you wouldn't do it in any other profession. But the other thing that kind of struck me is, have you heard the phrase project creep?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, so basically, it's when it doesn't not necessarily just photography; it's anything. So, let's say you're building an extension. You're building an extension, and then the person then says, "Oh, and by the way, can you do the drive as well?"
Yeah,
Well, hang on a minute, that wasn't in the original brief. That's not the project. I'm here to build an extension and nothing more. If you want me to do your drive, then there's going to be extra money. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes extra money's done, but it's not always about the money. It's also about the time. Well, no, I've allotted this time to build your extension. I've got to go to Mr. Smith down the road and build their extension after this, so I don't have time to do your drive. It could be things like that. Now, I've noticed this in photography. You're going off to do.
Definitely.
You go off to do some headshots. Of a company or something like that. And then they kind of go, actually, can you also get some, I don't know, behind the scenes, or maybe can you take some pictures of our products as well? And can you get a picture of the office? And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. No. I've quoted you for headshots. And, I also have another shoot this afternoon. So, I can't do, and people kind of go, well, you should really do this for me and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, no, I mean, how have you had that, Cam? Is that something that you've sort of come across, and how do you deal with it? And what would your advice be?
All the time. I've had that for years. Well,
you got a name for it now, project creep.
Yeah, project. I'd never heard of that phrase actually. It's going to stay with me now, because I think I can think of almost every shoot that I've done for a company when I've been there. And you've gone to do some headshots or you've gone to do some product shots, and there is always that thing of, somebody's just had this idea. They've said, while you're here, could you do this? And you're thinking, well, in actual fact, you've just given me these products, and really they need to be done on say a white background, but I haven't got that white background because it wasn't part of the brief. So I'm now gonna, and then they'll say, well, just pop them up there. I'm sure they'll be fine. Just so they're looking for let's just get him while he's here. And what they do is they're sort of thinking, right, while we've got the photographer here, the photographer's charging X amount for this for the day. Let's squeeze as much out of that photographer as we can. And I've been in this situation where they've not even given you a break, where you don't even get a lunch break, where they just expect you to go from one to the other because they're thinking, right, this photographer's here for a day. We're paying a daily rate here. So we want to make sure, right, that we get as much out of this photographer as we possibly can. But for me now, I'm experienced enough to be able to say, guys, I'm going to go and grab something to eat. I don't worry about that now. And then they'll say, oh, of course, yes, have a break, but I've been in companies where they don't even offer you a tea or a coffee. And I know for a fact that they've gone off to go and have their break, but they've just left you working and shooting. But I'll say now I have that confidence, but that confidence has only come from having done it for so many years, to be able to say, guys, I just need to grab a coffee. And these days it's different because a lot of people just nip out to a Costa or wherever. So it's very easy to say, I'm just going to nip out to a Costa, or is there a Starbucks near here? It's going back years ago. That was never the case. They didn't really exist, really. You'd be waiting for someone. But when it comes to now people asking to do, they want extra things doing that project creep, as you call it. Right. Okay. I will now just add it onto the invoice and no one quibbles about it. So when it comes to it, I will then break it down and say, look, there were your headshots that we needed to do. Right. That was those. And then in the invoice, I'll put additional product photography, X amount, editing, X amount. I'll just break it down. And then if they query it, then I would just say to them, well, it wasn't part of the brief. Certainly I can add those on. There is a way of saying it. And I have been in the situation where I've said to people that something like, we can add those on for you. So it's that little phrase of saying, Yeah. Oh, we can add. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly, I can add those on for you. And by saying that, you're almost sort of saying, yeah, we can add that as a
An
there
extra
will be
service.
yeah, rather than saying, well, you've not actually paid for it, so you're willing to pay for it. I don't want to say that because I don't want to put them off. I want to do the job for them. So they think, oh, he was brilliant. It was great. And afterwards, when you put the invoice in, they don't query it because they know that they asked for that and it was extra. So if you are in that situation, then it is how you phrase it, it is how you word it. And I wouldn't say this is how you should always do it, because I think it's an experience thing and it's a confidence thing.
I mean, is there a way of preempting it, do you think?
I think there is, because you can always limit time. If you know that you're going to go to a customer and they're going to ask you to do a lot of extra that they're not willing to pay for, you just know that this shoot's going to take me a lot longer than I think it is. You can actually say, look, I've got, once you fit the date in, if you can say beforehand, look, if we can get it done within those 3 hours, because I've got a really busy schedule, so I really need to. And even when you go in, you can say, great, that's fine. I really need to. I need to stick with the times that we'd agreed. I really need to be away from here by midday. So you can be preempting all of those things and they're saying, yeah, of course, and we'll do that. And then what I'll then do, and I use it as a bit of a sales thing, I'll then say, right, what other stuff is there that you've got that needs doing? And then they'll say, well, we needed this doing, this doing, this doing. And I'll say, okay, when's a good time for me to come in and do those things? So I've now fitted in an extra day shoot or a half day shoot or an extra 2 days or something, but just by saying to them, I can do whatever you want me to do. I can't do it right now, but let's schedule a date in the diary and I'll come back. So there's different ways, and I've been in all of those situations of doing it. So you can do it and word it so that the customer always feels like they feel like that you're on their side, but never be in a situation where you end up saying, oh, well, you do know that that's going to cost you extra and it's going to cost you more, because suddenly their alarm bells start ringing because they're thinking, oh, right, okay, how much extra is this going to cost? Oh, I think we'll leave it. Whereas if you go about it a very different way in that you're trying to help, I've been on shoots where I've thought, this is a long day, this is, and there's just no way I'm going to fit all of this in, and they're asking me to do extra things, and I'll just say to them, look, are you guys here tomorrow morning? I can shift things around in my diary and get back in here tomorrow morning and we can finish this off. And you charge them for that extra half day, and they would expect to pay it as well. So, but certainly there is an expectation there where project creep happens all the time. I think it happens in a lot of trades.
This isn't just a photography thing.
We've got some decorate. Yeah, we got having some decorating done at home, and so part of it was done the 2 weeks that we've been away on these shoots, and we've got various things going on. And while they were here, we said, we've actually said, could you do this? Could you do that? Would you be able to do this? But I'm aware of that. I actually always say, look, I've got a few other things that need doing. I've got this, and this. Could you just give me a cost on what it's going to be for you just to do those while you're here? So I'm aware of that, but without ever having been aware of the phrase project creep. But I've never taken it for granted,
Yeah, but there's a difference saying, is there a possibility you could do this and cost it? You know what I mean? I think my issue is people kind of go, well, whilst you can just squeeze this in for us and not have, no, that's not in the original brief and that is going to cost you more. But you're right. It's just definitely, it's that client management that we've spoken about before, isn't it? It's about, we can definitely squeeze that in. Or no, I can't because I have quite a tight schedule today, so I could come back in tomorrow and get it done or something.
That's it. Yeah. And what you're doing is you're creating yourself more work. You're giving the client what they want. They're going to end up getting what they want. And yes, you're charging for it. They're paying for it, but they're getting what they want. But it's done in a professional way, and it's done in a way where they're not taking it for granted. And if they do end up saying to you, if you say, look, and if they're aware that, look, you're just not going to be able to do it on that day, say, look, what I'll do is, when's another good day for me to come back? And they do sometimes say, all right, well, don't worry about it. They're not that important, right? Okay, that's it. That kills that. In other words, you were going to do something and they didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, let us come back to you and we'll fix another day. And if they come back to you, they do. If they don't, they don't. But sometimes I also follow it up. I'll, when I finish something off and I'm editing something, I say, do you guys want to schedule a date in for those other shots? And sometimes they'll come back and say, no, we're going to hold those. We're going to hold off on those. Or we'll say, oh yes, yeah. They will say, oh yeah, can we, when can you come in? We want to get those done.
Is there a ratio, do you reckon, how many times do people go, oh no, actually, don't worry about it? How many people go, oh yeah, no, we need to get you booked in? Is there?
I would say, because of the way I approach it, most people end up saying to me that let's get it booked in.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's just because of, it's really difficult to say how, but it's just it's just from that, having the experience of knowing what to say in those situations. I'm sort of using sales. I'm sort of using a sales sort of pitch, but without them sort of thinking it's a sales pitch.
It's a soft sell, isn't it?
It's a real soft sell, but it's always, there's something in this for us. We need him to come back.
But I wonder how many people are just trying to get extra out of you without having to pay for it. I think it's more a case of, I wouldn't necessarily say, I think it comes back to what I was saying, that they feel that they've booked you for a day. When they say how much is your daily rate, for example, when they've got you for a day, they think that they've got you for every single second of that whole day without a break, right? And if you hurry up and do these things, right, you can also get these fitted in for us, because we're paying you for a day anyway. So the other thing here is, let's just say that they do ask you to do extra stuff. Let's say that you've booked in for a day and your day was, let's say it was 9 to 5, and you've more or less finished what you're going to do, and it's 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and you think, they've given me some more stuff to do, right? And okay, I can do this, I've got the time to do it. Then what you do is you can make that decision of not to charge them for the shoot, because it was within that day anyway, but you still charge them the extra for the editing that you're doing. Okay, so you're still charging them for the editing, for the release of those images with the copyright. So you can still make additional money from that. But if you get yourself into a situation where you're doing it and you're doing it for nothing at all, and then that's probably you as the photographer, that's your fault, that's your issue, that's your problem, rather than the client not willing to pay for something. I would say that's your fault. That's the fault of the photographer. Okay, fair enough. So I guess just making things clear at the get-go. So I mean, another thing that come out there, you have an additional post costs. So you don't just charge for the day, you charge for the editing and the post work.
Yes. So if it's a shoot, then what I'll do is I'll break it down and say, this is going to be the cost of the shoot, and then here's the cost of the editing and the release of the images. So rather than saying, here's, if a job is going to cost £500, let's say it's photography and all your editing time and everything, and you're releasing the images £500, I'd probably say to them, okay, well, it's £350 for the photography, £100 for editing, £50 for release of images, something like that. I would just break it down for them. And then that way also, I think they feel that they're getting more value for money, because they see what they're actually paying. Because if you just say to them, right, it's going to cost you £500, they think it's going to cost them £500 for you to go and take some photos. What they don't realize is that they're also paying for the editing. They're also paying for the release of the images and the copyright that they want to use those images as well. So if you make that clear, then they think that, or they see that, okay, it's not just the photography, there's the editing. Of course there's the editing. And the images, we need those, of course. And the copyright. Okay, so we can do what we want with those images. Suddenly you realize, they start to realize that they're buying all of these things from you, and they're not just buying photography from you.
I mean, when you say copyright, because I find this is a big confusion for a lot of people, because copyright for me is about authorship rather than anything else. I'm assuming you still keep the authorship of the images. It's just you give companies permissions to do whatever they want with them.
Yeah, basically that word copyright, I'm saying to people that you can use the images however you want to use them. There is no restriction. I know that in the past we used to say, look, what are the images going to be used for? There's a certain fee for certain usages, and I know that still happens in the advertising industry. You've got images, you can use them for if you want to use them for magazine advertising, it's going to cost you this much. If you want them for website use, it's going to cost you. Okay, so they break it down, and then there's a time scale as well. You've got that license for 6 months, or you've got it for a year or 3 months,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. I don't do that because that's not the type of work that I do. What I do is I use the word copyright, but basically it's saying to them that
It's
you're allowed,
permissions.
permission to
Yeah.
do what you want with it, with whatever you want with the pictures. The good thing about that is, again, they feel like they're getting something. They're sort of thinking it's a positive for them, because they're thinking, oh, great, we own the copyright. We can do what we want with these pictures. Whereas if I don't mention it, they don't know that by putting in that, they feel like it's value, that they're getting even more for what they're paying. Oh, that's what the photographer's charging. Oh, that's pretty good. Another photographer who prices for the same job, just puts in photography services and puts the same price in, isn't giving as much perceived value as breaking it down.
That's interesting to know. Interesting to know.